Okay, we are live. Okay, last week we did chapter 10 and we saw again how Nimai Pandit was still behaving like Nimai Pandit. He was still very proud, showing his knowledge and still defeating everybody. And then, of course, now we know that he got married to Vishnu Priya. And you know the circumstances, how at first his mother, Shasimata, was not showing any interest of getting him married, but out of his own will, you know, he accepted to get married. And then we understood all the ceremony, how it went, very, very fascinating, very, very beautiful. And then about the dowry, and then about, you know, the ceremony. And then he came back home. Everybody was very happy. Now we are moving on. He's still in this chapter. We'll see how Nimai Pandit will continue to be, you know, scholastic pastime will continue. Now he will meet Ishwara Puri for the first time. Of course, you know, as you may know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has not shown his real, you know, mission of Sankirtan movement yet. But everybody praise him because he's so intelligent and he can defeat many, many people. And now, you know, when he walk on this side, somebody will walk on the other side so that they don't confront him. And then also, as we know, Advaita Acharya, because of him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Now there will be another great, you know, personality that will come. Other than that, you already know the name, Sri Ishwara Puri. He will come in incognito, but they will know that he is a great Vaishnava. And now we'll discover this, how Chaitanya Prabhu will meet him, will interact with him. Okay, let's continue. Sorry, Maharaj?
We're going to read now, Prabhuji?
Yes, we'll read now. You want to read? Okay,
Yeah.
Page 111.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, should I share?
Yes, please.
Chapter 11, Meeting with Sri Ishwara Puri. This chapter describes various subjects like the scholastic pastimes of Nimai Pandit, Mukunda's chanting the names of Krishna in Advaita's assembly, Nimai's sporting pastimes with Mukunda, the godlessness of Nadia, the arrival of Ishwara Puri in Navadvip, Ishwara Puri's meeting with Advaita Prabhu, is accepting lunch and discussing topics of Krishna at Gaura's house, Ishwara Puri teaching his book Sri Krishna Lilamrit to Sri Gadadhar Pandit, Nimai commenting on that book and is enjoying topics of Krishna with Sri Puri Pada. Sri Gaurav Chandra, the husband of Saraswati, wandered throughout Navadvip with thousands of students while remaining intoxicated from scholastic mellows. Throughout Navadvip, no one other than Gangadasa Pandita could properly understand Nimai Pandit's explanations. According to the mundane mentality, the materialistic saw Nimai Pandit in various ways. The atheists saw him as Yamaraj personified. The materialists saw him as Cupid personified. And the learned scholars saw him as Brahaspati personified. Meanwhile, the Vaishnavas eagerly waited with the following hope: when will the Lord manifest devotional service to Vishnu within this world, which is devoid of devotion to Vishnu? Many people came to study in Navadvip, which was the main educational center. Many Vaishnava residents of Chattogram came and lived in Navadvip in order to study and reside on the bank of Ganges. In the afternoon, all pure devotees would gather at the assembly of Sri Advaita. All the Vaishnavas in the assembly of Advaita felt great happiness in their hearts on hearing the glories of Lord Hari chanted by Mukunda, who was dear to all Vaishnavas. For this reason, the Lord was also very pleased at heart with Mukunda. As soon as Nimai saw Mukunda, he would challenge him with questions and logic, and both would then engage in loving debate. Nimai would also challenge other devotees headed by Srivasa. Fearing that Nimai would challenge them, they would all run away from him. Having renounced topics not related to Krishna, the devotees did not love to hear anything except Krishna Katha. And Nimai did not ask them anything other. Sorry, Prabhu, I got disconnected. Can I continue?
Yes.
One day, Nimai Pandit was coming on the main road with some students. At that time, Mukunda saw Nimai from a distance and immediately tried to escape from his vision. On the pretext of describing the reason of Mukunda's behavior, Nimai narrated his and his devotees' glories to Govinda, who was his servant and doorkeeper, saying, I have not yet revealed the topics of devotional service to Krishna. That is why Mukunda ran away from me. But he didn't but he will not do this for long, because I will manifest such pure devotional service and Vaishnava characteristics that even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva will come to my doorstep and roll on the ground. Thereafter, the author describes the godless atmosphere of Navadvip at that time. Although the devotees were always engaged in chanting the names of Krishna, the people of Nadia were so averse to Krishna and maddened by enjoyable objects like wealth and children that as soon as they heard the chanting of Krishna's name by devotees, particularly the four brothers headed by Srivasa, they ridiculed and teased them. Hearing the blasphemous words from the sinful atheists, the Vaishnavas felt great distress within their heart and always thought, when will Sri Krishna Chandra appear within this world and eradicate the dirt of Kirtana? When the Vaishnavas informed Sri Advaita about the criticism and blasphemous words of the atheist, Acharya Prabhu vowed, I will soon induce Krishna, who gives pleasure to the hearts of the devotees, to manifest here in Navadvipa. By the words of Sri Advaita, the distress of the Vaishnavas was mitigated. Meanwhile, as Nimma increased Sachi's joy by remaining observed in the pleasure of study, Sri Ishwara Puri one day arrived incognito at Sri Advaita's house in Navadvip. By seeing his wonderful effulgence, Advaita Acharya understood that Ishwara Puri was a Vaishnava sannyasi. When Mukunda sang a song about Krishna in Advaita's assembly, the naturally deep ocean of love for Krishna in the pure heart of Ishwara Puri overflowed. Thereupon, everyone came to know that his devoted sannyasi was Ishwara Puri. One day, as Sri Gaurasundara was returning home from teaching by Providence, he met Ishwara Puri on the way. The Lord, who is Jagat Guru, displayed honor to his devotee by immediately offering obeisance to his servant. Seeing Nimai wonderful effulgence, Ishwara Puri inquired about his identity and the subject of his studies. Nimai answered all of the Ishwara Puri's inquiries and then respectively brought him home for lunch. After Sachi Devi cooked and offered foodstuff to Krishna and fed Ishwara Puri began to discuss topic of Krishna with Nimai. While discussing, Ishwara Puri became overwhelmed with love of God. Ishwara Puri stayed in Navadvip at the house of Sri Gopinath Acharya for a few months, and Nimai regularly went to see him. Seeing the devotion of Gangadhar Pandidar, who was renounced from his childhood, Ishwara Puri began to affectionately teach him his books, Sri Krishna Lilamrita. Every evening after studying and teaching, Nimai went to offer obeisance to Ishwara Puri. One day, Ishwara Puri requested Nimai Pandit to point out the mistakes in his Sri Krishna Lilamrit and indicate his desire to correct the mistakes under Nimbai's guidance. Hearing his words, the Lord condemned mundane scholarship and spoke the following invaluable nectarian words. First of all, this book is composed by such a pure devotee as Puri Pada, and moreover, it is full of topics about Krishna. Therefore, whoever finds faults in this book is certainly an offender. The poetry of a pure devotee is in whatever form it may be, is always pleasing to Krishna. There is no doubt about it. The Supreme Lord never sees any grammatical faults in the statement of his devotees, for he is controlled by the devotion and he accepts the sentiments of his devotees. A person who finds faults in the statement of a devotee is himself full of faults. No one is so audacious as to find faults in the descriptions of the Supreme Lord by pure devotee like Pauripada. but Ishwarapuri repeatedly requests Nimai to point out the faults in this book. In this way, Ishwarapuri regularly spent an hour or two with Nimai discussing various subjects. After hearing a verse from Ishwarapuri book one day, Nimai Pandita sportingly said, "The verb in this verse should be parasma, parasmaipadi instead of atmanepadi." Another day, when Nimai came back, Ishwarapuri said, "The verb that you have not accepted as atmanepadi, I have accepted as atmanepadi. In order to increase the glories and display the victory of his servant, the Lord need not point out any further faults." Haribol, anybody wants to continue?
Uh,
Prabhu,
one line, Mataji, continue this.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's in my book. I thought the page is over. In this way, after spending some time enjoying educational pastime with Nimai, Ishwarapuri left Navadvip to continue sanctifying the holy places of India.
Very good.
Very beautiful.
Okay, this is a summary, no?
Yeah, very beautiful.
Okay. Okay, then somebody else can continue.
I can read, Prabhu.
Okay.
Jaya Jaya Maha Maheshwara Gara Chandra Balya Leelaya Shri Vidya Vilasera Kendra. All glories to Shri Gaurachandra, the Lord of Lords. In his childhood, he was the reservoir of scholastic pastimes. The phrase Vidya Vilashera Kendra is explained as follows. The lack of proper philosophy or knowledge is called avidya. Although some people claim that to achieve knowledge of an incomplete object is vidya, real knowledge is found only in the knowledge of the Supreme Lord who is complete. Although knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma aspects of the absolute truth is part of the spiritual knowledge, in a comparative study of spiritual knowledge, they are both limited and incomplete. The age for primary education of an ordinary human being is known as balya or childhood. The enactment of educational pastimes that we find in the pastimes of Gaurachandra at that age are like the childhood activities of the spiritual world. The arrangement for learning and teaching children's literatures like grammar, the principal subject of language books, is simply based on giving and talking mundane knowledge. With the help of these children's literatures, one can enter into and realize knowledge regarding the transcendental sound. Although different languages born from the research of mankind are meant for bringing one to the knowledge of the Supreme, they are not actually directing one to the knowledge of the Supreme. Ordinary people could not observe even a tinge of spiritual education in the educational pursuits of Sri Gaurasundara in his childhood pastimes. Since Gaurasundara concealed himself at that time, many people had no opportunity to see him as the central figure of all spiritual knowledge. Although the objects of the external world, which acts as the servants of sensual knowledge, did not benefit the living entities through Sri Gaurasundara studying grammar or teaching language, from the intellectual point of view, he was nevertheless certainly present in each word as the super soul. Ei mate gupta bhave ache dvija raja adhyayana vina ara nahi kona kaja. In this way, as Gaura, the best of the Brahmanas, confidentially lived in Navadvip, he had no engagement other than study. Jiniya Kandarpa Koti Rupa Manohara Prati Ange Nirupama Lavanya Sundara Ajanu Lambita Bhuja Kamala Nayana Adhare Tambula Divya Vasa Paridhana. His form was as enchanting as millions of cupids. Each of his limbs was incomparably charming. His arms extended to his knees, and his eyes were like the petals of a lotus. He chewed betel nut and dressed divinely. The words Adhare Tambula, chewed betel nut, are explained as follows. On seeing Sri Gaurasundara's wonderfully sweet body, which defeats that of millions of cupids, his matchless effulgence emanating from his bodily limbs, his long arms that stretch to his knees, his lotus eyes, his fine dress, and betel nuts between his lips, the conditioned souls who have been awarded ugly material bodies, short arms, and harsh eyes, and who desire sense gratification, consider Sri Gaurasundara as attached to material enjoyment and intoxication and possessing a material body like themselves. But if they understand the extraordinary glories of Sri Gaurasundara, It will help the envious living entities realize that their material bodies, which are fit to be eaten by dogs and jackals, and their minds, which are attached to misconceptions, are abominable. Although Sri Gaurachandra accepted innumerable items of enjoyment such as betel nuts, he instructed everyone for the eternal benefit to engage each and every item in the service of Krishna, who is the only object of all enjoyment. In other words, he taught that if living entities eligible for being controlled by Maya enjoy insignificant material sense objects, their inauspiciousness is guaranteed. For these items are eternally prescribed as ingredients for the service of the Supreme Lord. Although the display of such pastimes by Sri Gaurasundara is meant to be seen and analyzed by self-controlled sadhakas, the eternally envious, ignorant observers are simply bewildered as a reward for their foolishness. Since Sri Gaurasundara is situated on the highest platform of the absolute truth, his exhibition of renunciation pastimes was not intended to protect himself from the mundane difficulties imposed by non-devotional endeavors like those of conditioned souls who desire self-control and liberation and who display an indifferent lifestyle in order to remain detached or separate from material objects. Rather, he empowered the most fortunate person to understand the important truth that in the characteristics and personality of the Supreme Lord, the performance of such pastimes is not at all abominable or faulty. 6.5 Sarvadaya parihasa murti vidya bale sahasrapadya sange yabe prabhuchale. As the Lord walked with thousands of students by the strength of his knowledge, he entertained everyone with his sharp wit. Sarvanavadvipe bhrame tribhuvanapati pustakera rupe kare priya saraswati. Vishambar, the Lord of the three worlds, traveled all over Navdeep holding in his hand his beloved Saraswati in the form of a book. In the form of books, Mahalakshmi Narayani, the goddess of speech, always remained in the lotus hands of her Lord, Gaura Narayan, and thus fulfilled the meaning of the Lord's name, Vachaspati, the husband of the goddess of speech. Navadipa hena nahi panditera nama ye asiya bujhi beka prabhura vyakhyana. There was no scholar throughout Navdeep who could understand Nimai's explanations. Sabe eka ganga dasa mahabhagyavana yara thani prabhu kare vidyara adana. The Lord discussed his explanations only with the most fortunate Gangadas Pandit. Sakala samsari dekhi bole dhanya dhanya enandana yahara tahara kaun dainya. All the materialistic people ask, the parents of this boy are certainly glorious. What can they be lacking? Yate ka prakriti dekhe madana samana pasandi dekhe yana yama vidyamana. All the ladies considered the Lord to be attractive as Cupid, and atheists considered him as death personified. In this material world, the men are the enjoyers and the women are the objects of enjoyment. In other words, the women are enjoyed by the men and the men are enjoyed by the women. And enjoys his objects of enjoyment with his senses. Both the male and female enjoy material objects through their jnanendriyas or knowledge acquiring senses and karmendriyas or the working senses. Gaurasundara is directly Lord Krishna, therefore he is the abode of all beauty, surpassing millions of cupids. Gaurasundara is never an object of enjoyment for mundane women. That is why he cannot be the object of worship for the Gaura Nagaris. When a living entity becomes self-realized, the Madan Mohan form of Gaurasundara manifests within his heart. Although the conditioned souls who identify themselves as women may consider Gaurasundara as an object of enjoyment, Gaurahari does not fulfill their prayers. The moods of master and servant are present in this material world. For the living entities to think themselves the masters of material nature rather than considering themselves the servants of the Supreme Lord is an impediment in their constitutional duties of this devotional service. Sri Gaurasundara has personally displayed to the living entities the prime example of how to be a servant of the Supreme Lord and thus remove the enjoying mood from their conditioned minds. That is why the followers of Gaurahari cannot accept him as Nagara, the enjoyer of women. The Lord Gaurasundara never demonstrated that he was under the control of any material conditions in his pastimes. But even if someone out of great misfortune forgets that he is the eternal servant of the servitor, God, and thinks himself the object of service, Sri Gaurasundar still awakens his service attitude towards Gaura Krishna by removing such evil propensities. Haribol. Yeah, Prabhu, here, so it's explained the scholastic pastimes of Gaurahari. So he again was very scholastic. He always kept the books, so that Goddess Saraswati as his wife in his hands, and his beauty is described that his limbs were, his hands or arms were longer and were touching the knees. He has a beautiful smile, and he used to dress nicely, divinely. He was chewing the betel nut. So for the atheists, he was like a Yamaraj. For the materialists, they were always commenting on his beauty and saying that how Vishambar's parents were so lucky to have him, and for the others, like he was like a Cupid, like he was more beautiful than the Cupid, and so it's and then in the purports, it's mentioned that we cannot think about that Gaurahari was a materialist who is just chewing betel nut. We should not think it that way. And then even here in the last purport is mentioned that it's not like because he's so beautiful, Gaurahari, he's not a materialist. He's not to be think of as to be enjoyed. Is when our hearts become pure, his beautiful form will manifest himself. Is we have to understand our constitutional position that we are the servant of Krishna. So we have to worship him in that way.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Very nice summary. One point I would like to touch is at the end, verse 10. It's about the man is enjoying the woman and the woman is getting enjoyed. And this is a very, as we say, a point that most of us, in this material world, this is a main attraction, because we are here because of that reason as well. And, as long as we will have this attraction to the opposite sex, we will stay in this material world. And anyway, we will, when we go through some of other thing, we'll see that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the main purpose of his coming here is to deliver us from that. That means we put everything else in the service of Krishna. And even Srila Prabhupada, the way he has designed ISKCON in a way, from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, even if we sleep, in our sleep, if we are sleeping, to wake up again tomorrow morning to continue the service of chanting, that means even sleeping become devotional service. That means in a way, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us through establishment of ISKCON, of course, not only ISKCON, other temple as well. But since we are followers of Srila Prabhupada, that means, the way he has established the daily sadhana, as we say, if we rigorously do it, then we will overcome this attraction for the opposite sex. Because even if we are grihasthas and all that, I mean, everything will be used in the service of Krishna. And slowly you will see, for example, many of us on this call, we have as soon as we wake up, we have the Japa conference call. We try to chant together. Then some of us, we have deities at home. Then we'll do, offering, of course, take bath, do arti, offering and all that. Then we start our day. Then even our work, if we work and we earn money and we are serving the deity, we are cooking food for Krishna, even the work become devotional service in a way. And then in the evening, you do your, take care of the kids or cooking, offering again. You know, now we are reading every day. You are attending a certain discussion or class. Then your whole day, your whole life is in that. Therefore, in this way, you know, when we do what we are doing, the sadhana, as we say, slowly and slowly we will get detached from, you know, this material way. People think this is a material world, but if you live in the material world and do your sadhana as required, as prescribed, then even though you are in this material world, but you will not be in this material world. This is a goal. The goal is we are here, but we are not here, you know, until the time that, you know, one day we'll have to go, then hopefully we don't come back here. Or if ever we come back here, we pray to Krishna that he always keep us in his service somehow or other. You know, this is the way we should think, and this is the way we should see life also, that is slowly and slowly we get closer to Krishna and far from the mundane life. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he emphasized a bit on that in the last verse, text 10 in the purport. Okay, let's continue. Somebody else want to read?
I can read, Prabhu.
Okay.
पंडिता सकला देखे ये न बृहस्पति, ये माता देखे सबे यारा ये namati. All the learned scholars considered him equal to Brihaspati. In this way, everyone appreciated the Lord according to his own mentality. देखी विसंभार रूपे सकल वैष्णवा हरिसा विसादा है माने भावे साभा. Seeing Visambhara's attractive form, the Vaishnavas felt both jubilation and lamentation. Hena divya sarirena haya Krishna rasa ki karibe vidyaya hele kalavasa. Mohita Vaishnavasa ve Prabhu Maya देखिया तबु केहा देखीते ना पाया. They thought, although he has such a divine body, he has no attraction for Krishna. What good is his education if he simply wasted his time? All the Vaishnavas were bewildered by the eternal potency of the Lord. So even though they saw the Lord, they did not understand him. For persons on the path of the ascending process, education continues up to the time of death. The knowledge that is living entity acquires during his lifetime does not help him in the next life. By seeing the Gaurasundara was as learned as Brihaspati and as beautiful as Cupid, ordinary people thought that such transcendental beauty and extraordinary knowledge would remain only for the duration of his life. That is, they were temporary, but the opulence of Krishna are actually eternal. They thought that if the opulence seen in Gaurasundara were those of a devotee rather than those of the absolute independent form of Krishna, who enjoyed pastime out of his own sweet will, it would particularly increase the happiness of the devotee. By the desire of Lord, the Vaishnavas also did not understand at that time that Lord Hari is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Sri Krishna is an ocean of transcendental pastime. By his own will, the influence of Yog Maya either revealed Gaura's covered pastimes nor gave an opportunity to the Vaishnavas to understand that his Gauda form was that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Though they saw him, they nevertheless did not see or understand his real form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ordinary conditioned soul had no right at all to preserve the Lord, who was engaged in covered pastime. साकाते हो प्रभु देखी केहा बोले के करी ये गोना के काला तुमी विद्या भोले. Although they directly saw the Lord, some of them said, "Why do you waste your time in the fruitless pursuit of knowledge?" In order to assist of the covered pastimes of the Lord, the Vaishnavas, by the will of the Lord, act like ignorant people, induced by the material knowledge as they continually endeavored to convert Gauda into the servant of the Supreme Lord. Besides giving indirect hint, they also directly told Nimai not to remain absorbed in the cultivation of useless knowledge, but to worship Hari, for that was beneficial. Suniye hasina prabhu seva kare vake Prabhu bole tumara sikhao mora bhai. The Lord smiled on the hearing his servant speak like this, and he replied, I am fortunate to have you instruct me. In reply, the Lord said, it is my great fortune that you are all instructing me to become a devotee of Hari. Wow. He namate Prabhu gonae vidya rasa sevaka chinite nare aaye jana kesa. As the Lord thus passed his time in scholastic pastime, his servant could not recognize him. So what to speak of others? By the will of the Lord, and to assist in his covered pastimes, his eternal associates did not understand his glories, but rather act as ignorant. When even the Lord eternal associates could not recognize him, how then could ordinary materialists who are expert in fruitive activities know him? Chatura dikha haite loka navadvipe aaye nava vidya padiye se vidya rasa paye. People came from all over India to study in Navadvip. For if one studied in Navadvip, he got a taste for education. Chati Grama Nivasi o Ane ke tahae Padena Vaishnava Sabe Rakhena Ganga. Many Vaishnavas came from Chittagram to live on the bank of the Ganga and studied in Navadvip. In order to study the residents of the distant village of Chittagrama resides on the bank of Ganga in Navadvip. Sabe Jaminaye Chena Prabhura Agnaye Ebi Virakha Krishna Bhaktas Sarvathai. They were all renounced devotees of Krishna and had taken birth in the order of the Lord. By the desire of Gaurasundara, all the devotees who had appeared in this world at that time became totally indifferent to material objects and constantly engaged in worshipping Krishna. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, you go ahead, Prabhu. You explain.
Okay. The most important thing here is
Are you?
how is Chaitanya Prabhu is still, doing his scholastic pastime, and how the devotee of Krishna think that, okay, it's good to have nice education, but it's all depend how we use it also. Then they were even advising Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, don't waste your time, study so much. You have to become a devotee of Hari. And then amazingly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, oh, thank you. You are all instructing me. Actually, we know that he was doing this for a purpose. And later we'll find out, how people will respect him, how people will respect, like, will glorify him, since he knew, he has so much knowledge, but he took up to devotional service. That means giving up all his knowledge to become just a renunciate, as a beggar in a way, a great devotee. Because sometimes when we see devotees that are very simple, maybe ourselves, we can think, oh, these people, they don't know, they are so simple, they are ignorant, or they are poor, they are this, they are that. But we don't know. For them to be like this now, what were they before? Maybe not in this life, maybe in the previous life. Maybe they were great devotee, great scholar. And in this life now, they are just acting like like an ordinary person, or like an idiot in a way, like a real ignorant. That's why we as devotee, we should be very careful of judging anyone, especially devotees, whether they are simple, whether they look poor, whether they look ignorant, or they don't speak well, they can't read well. Or in Nectar of Instruction, we know that Rupa Goswami said that, just like the moon has a lot of dots, but the moon is still beautiful. We should not look at the dot on the moon. We should look at the beautiful features of the moon. What is the importance of the moon? And then another example Rupa Goswami gave is the Ganges water, whether it's muddy, whether there's bubble in it, it is still pure. Those who look at the bubble, or look at the dirtiness of the Ganges water or Yamuna, and will say, oh, this is dirty. But Yamuna water, Ganga water is always pure. We should not look at what we see at the face value. This is something that, is very, very important for us to understand as well. That means even devotees who look to be ordinary, to be maybe not very smart, but they are a devotee. For them to become devotee, that means they have done something to become a devotee today. And maybe the simpler they are, maybe the more advanced they are as well. Because some devotee, they could have done much, much more, but they don't want to do more. Because they know if they want to do more, they can get more entangled in this material life. That's why, us as aspiring devotee, we should be very careful. Okay, let's continue. Okay, maybe Vanita Mataji, do you want to read? Okay, maybe I read then.
I can read, Prabhu, if nobody else is reading.
It's okay, I can read, not a problem. Text 21. Anyo nahi mil sabe padiya suniya, karena Govinda charcha, Birte Visai Siya. After school hours, is regularly met together in a solitary place to discuss topics of Krishna, our Lord Krishna. Not receiving any encouragement for worshipping Krishna from Sri Gaurasundara, the Vaishnava of that time cultivate Krishna's consciousness in seclusion. Wherever there is no direct manifestation of the Supreme Lord or his dear associate, Nirjana Bhajana, or solitary worship of the Lord is appropriate. Otherwise, it is prescribed that one should engage in Hari Kirtana only under the guidance of the Supreme Lord or his devotee. Sarva Vaishnavera Priya Mukunda Ekanta Mukandera Ghane Drave Sakale Mahanta. Sri Mukunda was most dear to all the Vaishnavas. Their hearts are all melted when he sang. Those who are detached from material enjoyment and engage in worshipping the Supreme Lord are called Mahantas or Vaishnavas. On hearing Mukunda singing about the pastime of Lord Hari, the heart of such great soul melted. Vikala haile haisa bhagavata gana advaita sabhya sabhe hayena milana. In the afternoon, all the devotees regularly met in the house of Advaita Prabhu. After completing the day's work, the devotees gathered in the afternoon at the house of Advaita Acharya Prabhu in Sri Mayapur. Since Sri Gaurasundara has not yet manifested his pastime as a shelter of the devotees, Sri Advaita Prabhu was the shelter of all Vaishnava. Ye matra Mukunda Gayana Krishna Gita Hena Nahi Jani Keba Pade Kunbhita. As soon as Mukunda would begin singing about Krishna, everyone there fell to the ground in ecstatic love. After hearing Mukunda singing about Krishna, all the listeners become overwhelmed with love of God and fell on the ground here and there. Keha kande keha hase keha nitya kare ghade ghadi haya keha vrastana sabhare. Some of them cry, some laugh, and others dance. The clothes of some person scattered as they roll on the ground. The word vastra na sabhera indicate that they were unable to keep their cloth in order. Kunkara kariye kahe marsat mare keha giya mukundera dhui pare dhare. Someone roared as he challenged the agent of Maya, and someone else caught hold of Mukunda feet. Emata uteya paramananda sukha najane Vaishnava sabe arakone dukha. In this way, the Vaishnava enjoyed great ecstasy and forgot all form of distress. Prabhu Mukunda Prati Padasuki Mane Dikhile Mukundera Dharane Apane. The Lord was most satisfied with Mukunda. Whenever the Lord saw him, he would stop him. Prabhu Jinyasena Panki Vakane Mukunda Prabhu Bhole Kiche Nahe Aralaghe Dhanva. The Lord would then ask Mukunda for some clarification on a point, and when Mukunda answered him, the Lord would say, wrong. Immediately, an argument would begin. Whatever Mukunda replied, when challenged by the Lord would immediately reject, and as a result, they would begin to quarrel. Mukunda Pandita Bhada Prabhu Prabhave Paksa Pratipaksa Bhakari Prabhu Sange Same Lage. By the mercy of the Lord, Mukunda was very learned. Thus, he was able to present argument and counter-argument to Nimai challenge. By the mercy of the Lord, there was no end to Mukunda's knowledge. Mukunda engaged in a war of words with the Lord through his debate and counter-debate. Okay, now we saw how Mukunda, as a great singer, when he will sing with such a bow that devotees will be, like fall all over and will go into an ecstatic mood. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he will hear sometime, but as now he has a different goal until he defeat the big Vijay Pandit and all that we will see later. He will not reveal his true identity. But within his heart, he's so happy to hear Mukunda. And also whenever he, as I said earlier, sometime when he will walk here, Mukunda will walk on the other side, but sometimes they face each other and then a debate will start. He will challenge him and Mukunda will reply back. And then, he will challenge him again. They do like this, but Mukunda is very, very intelligent, very, very smart by the mercy of the Lord himself. Because sometimes, like we know in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this pastime where, Krishna and Lord Vishnu, he want to fight, Virya Rasa. If you are very strong and you don't have an opponent at your level, then there is no taste, there is nothing in fighting. What happened is, if you have an opponent at your level, let's say you go on a debate contest and you are so smart, nobody can debate with you, then for you there's no relishment, it's not challenging, as we say, if you don't have an opponent at your level. That's why Mukunda is there, because he's very smart, so that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can relish this debate. Just like Lord Vishnu, Jai Vijay they became the demon Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu to fight with Lord Vishnu, so that Lord Vishnu can relish this fight. If not, there is not such, because they are devotees of the Lord, because real Rakshasa, Krishna doesn't have to come here to do that. He can wipe them out from there. That means he has to, the devotees themselves sometimes, they take that role to defeat the Lord. Now we see Mukunda also. He's coming here, he's singing very well, but in argument also he's defeating the Lord and the Lord counteract him. It's like a game, just like Jai and Vijay fighting with Lord Vishnu. And this is a mellow, this is a rasa that when we think about all this, how we can relish these interaction between the Lord and his devotees. Okay, we'll stop here for today. We'll do text 31 next time. And maybe if anybody had, I see Kokila Mataji has raised her hand. You have something to say?
Prabhuji, you were talking about Mukunda, right, Prabhu? When I was reading, he was saying that he would try to escape if there's mundane topics. He seems like he only talks about the Vishnu and devotional aspects, Prabhu. Mukunda?
Yeah, of course. Like when you debate, debate is logic and many things in debate. And debate can become very abstract as well, especially, when these big Pandit, they talk, they can go in topics about things which is very esoteric, that there is not help in the revival of your love to Krishna. You know,
Like,
let's say
Prabhu.
I will give you an example. Let's say I'm explaining to you how the universe works. You know, I will tell you about this force, that force. You know, to calculate this force, you have to do the integration of that thing and this one. And this, it's so complex that maybe you can have a headache. You understand? That
Yeah,
means
Prabhu. But in Mahaprakash Leela, Prabhu, I heard some lecture or something. Gauranga Mahaprabhu will not call Mukunda in because he's a pretender, and then he will because he says that in the Mahaprakash Leela, he says Mukunda will if it is a Advaitism, he will join that and he'll talk. And if he's with the Vaishnavas, he will praise Vishnu and he will talk. So he's a pretender, so I won't see him. Then finally he will cry, and then he will realize his mistake and he will cry, and then he will say to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, at least tell me when you will see me and see my face. I know I've offended you like that. Let me know when you will see me. Then Lord Chaitanya will say, okay, in 10 million years. Then he will get very jubilant because he trusted his words, and he will go in ecstasy. Okay, God has given a word that he will see me. So, and then immediately seeing his ecstatic movements, like he's totally surrendered, then Lord Chaitanya will call him inside.
yes, yes. Okay. Now, there is two aspects of it. You know, like even Advaita Acharya also, I will see at one point in time, he will start to preach Mayavadi philosophy. Why? Because sometime to get the attention of Lord Gauranga, he did that. He wanted to be beaten by Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That's why he did that. Now, for the case of Mukunda, it's a lesson for us. You know, we call this duplicity. You know, we should not be, you know, let's say I'm telling you something, you know, when we are among devotee, we relish to talk about devotee stuff. Then when we are with your friend, then we speak about mundane stuff. And also, when we talk about mundane stuff and you are relishing the topic also, you know, there is one thing, relishing the topic, or you are there because you have to be there. Let's say at work, you are discussing with your colleague about something, and then it's okay. You know, you have to be there, you have to discuss. But how much effort, how much you are relishing this? This is what counts. Because don't forget that the more we give our attention to something, you know, we say whatever our intention is, this is where our attention goes. And that means if we goes into much argument about mundane topic, discussing this, discussing that, discussing this, then our mind also get full with that topic. You understand? Okay, let's say, sorry?
Yeah, got it, Prabhu. But sometimes, Prabhu, we are personally, I'm saying, sometimes if non-devotees, they come and share their personal stuff, they share some of their, what to say, how they are
Their problem,
problems,
let's
yeah.
say.
The problems their side, but we don't know the other side, no, Prabhu. But we are hearing them. But should we avoid that completely, Prabhu?
No,
Hearing.
as a devotee, you can, you know, as we say, for this friend to come and tell